Welcome back. So over the weekend I spent a little bit of time on prepping up the Foreplane forward spar, which is this one that's highlighted in blue there. Prepping that up so we can create the plug for that and then ultimately the mold. So that's basically what it looks like, and it just basically runs along the leading edge of the foreplane and interfaces there with the ribs and obviously the upper and lower skins. And this is how it's going to look with the flanges added for the platform. So nothing that complicated, and we'll get that underway soon. And on Monday I was cutting the 4130 steel that's going to make up these boxes for the pin locks for the doors. Unfortunately we couldn't buy any of the right dimensions, so we have to make those, and you'll see that in a future episode. And meanwhile the guys are busy bulking up the last of these molds there for the ribs for the rudder and winglets. And there's some of the earlier ones that have been completed, and Zach's just there prepping them to actually lay up the parts. So he's putting a row of tacky tape around the outside and then putting some masking tape over the top of that. And back on the door locks, there's a bunch of different little bits and pieces that we had laser cut ages ago, and so I was just prepping those for welding, because some of them just need to be welded to those rods there, and they need to be cleaned up there where the weld's going to happen. Otherwise Brett's not very happy with me if I just pass him dirty stuff. And once again, keep in mind that these locks are purely for the prototype, and we won't be using those on production just because it just got, you know, too complicated, too many different little bits and pieces. That clamshell door solution is definitely going to simplify a lot of different things. But anyway, that's some of the pieces there for the pin locks, and all cleaned up on the ends where they're going to be welded. And back on the engine, Monday evening I got to run it again. So this time I've got the upper drive there, and I had sealed off that extra channel there where I suspected it was leaking, and with a JB weld. And so this time I just basically put some air pressure in there, and it was holding 140 psi, which is all we can get out of our compressor. And you can see I've got a gauge on the very front there. It's difficult to see, but it's basically saying 140 psi, and with no air connected to it anymore. It's just a sealed system there, and there wasn't any leaks or anything coming from there. And there's the other line, so that's the one coming off the govern. That's just blocked right now. So anyway, no leaks on the system, no leaking oil, not leaking air out of the system or anything like that. But again, when I ran it up to higher RPMs, I couldn't get it really much above 3000 RPM without the prop wanting to come out of flat pitch. So 140 psi is just not enough to hold it there. So anyway, what we're going to do is we've been looking at how Continental does it on their engines with the oil feed to the prop, and it looks like we have to make an adjustment to how we're doing it. So we're going to be remachining this little central shuttle that lives inside the upper housing. It's not a really complicated thing, and I'll just explain it in more detail in an upcoming video. And just to give you some idea how that run went, here is a screenshot there, and I've tagged the area there where I had the highest power set. So you can see there 37 pounds of 37 psi coming into the engine there, you know, which is the total air pressure. So you subtract the ambient there, and you end up with what's that, 22.9 pounds of boost. So still got a little bit more to go that I'm comfortable with. I'd be happy to have it run up to about 41 pounds total. Anyway, just doing the calcs on this, it turns out I was pushing about 300 horsepower there at 3000, just over 3000 RPM. So that's pretty much what I expected, and I'm happy with that. And now we're into Tuesday, and the guys are setting up for the next platform, and that's that one I showed you there at the beginning of this video. That's for that foreplane forward spar. And meanwhile, I've been working on prepping these little bits of foam block here for where these hard points are going to get laid up. So Jeff's going to be laying up a bunch of plies around and over that in order to create the hard point for where these pins are going to be, that the hooks ultimately attached to when the door closes, the lower hook locks that are on the bottom of the doors. So you'll see that getting laid up soon. And here's Zach and Devon working on cutting some of the foam there for that platform. So just using the hot wire there, as you can see, cutting off an 8-foot section there. and here it is. The platform's all glued up, or the foam's all glued up, and it's just underway now. So first time milling in a little while, actually milling some foam anyway, because the last thing I did was all those ribs that we cut out of the MDF. And here we are a little bit further along this evening, kind of a little bit just before I left. So this is one of these ones where we have to sort of mill half of it and then slide it along. And lastly, I got another pressure gauge, and this one goes up to 400 psi, and it just arrived today. So I've got that hooked up to the governor, and so this way we can find out exactly what psi the governor is sending, and then we can use that information to help us decide the tolerances and stuff for the change to the shuttle that we're going to do that lives inside that housing that passes the oil to the prop. And as you can see here, it got to 165 at idle, and it ended up being 200 psi at about 3,000 rpm, so it actually wasn't pushing as much pressure as what we thought. So anyway, and here's a look at the belts there running in slow-mo, and as you can see, it looks like it's possibly time for us to put the idle arms on there, the tensioner on there, to stop that belt from flopping around as much. Anyway, you'll see some more on the engine. I think the next time I'm going to run it, I'm going to probably hook up the governor again and just see how it works in terms of keeping the prop flat. So that's our update for the first half of this week, and thanks again for watching.